The mornings in Afia were a spectacle of colors and sounds. Weaver birds interwove their nests while the women ground millet for breakfast. Amina, with her braided hair adorned with colorful beads, walked proudly among the mud huts, ignoring the murmurs of disapproval that followed her like persistent shadows. "Amina, when will you stop shaming your family?" An old woman snapped as she passed by. "A woman without a husband is like a pumpkin without seeds." Amina smiled, her eyes sparkling with a mix of amusement and defiance. "And a woman with the wrong husband is like a river without water, Grandma. I'd rather wait for the rain." But even Amina, with all her strength, could not deny the loneliness that sometimes engulfed her at night, when the fire went out and the silence of her hut became deafening. However, she refused to settle for less than she believed she deserved. One day, while gathering herbs on the edge of the jungle, fate decided to intervene. A snake, camouflaged among the dry leaves, rose threateningly. Amina, paralyzed with fear, saw her life flash before her eyes. It was then that Kofi, a young hunter from the neighboring village, appeared like a bolt of lightning, killing the snake with astonishing precision. Amina's eyes met Kofi's, and in that instant, something in the universe shifted. It was as if the stars had realigned just for this moment. "Thank you," Amina whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Kofi smiled, his white teeth contrasting with his ebony skin. "I couldn't let the most beautiful flower in Afia wither before its time." In the following days, Kofi found excuses to visit Afia frequently. He brought gifts, wild honey, soft furs, exotic fruits. But the true gift was his presence, his laughter making Amina's heart leap like a young antelope. Soon, the entire village buzzed with rumors of a possible marriage. The old women nodded in approval. The young men looked on enviously, and Amina's mother Zainab watched with a mix of joy and concern. "My daughter," Zainab said one night as she braided Amina's hair, "love is beautiful, but it can also be dangerous. Make sure your heart and mind agree." Amina turned, taking her mother's wrinkled hands. "For the first time, Mama, my heart sings a song my mind understands perfectly." The wedding was a spectacle that Afia would not forget for generations. Drums thundered, voices rose in ancestral chants, and the air was filled with the aroma of spices and roasted meat. Amina, dressed in vibrant fabrics and adorned with jewelry that jingled with every movement, looked like an earthly goddess. Kofi, tall and proud, couldn't take his eyes off his bride. But amidst the celebration, one figure remained in the shadows, her eyes glowing with a fire that was not of joy. Binta, Kofi's mother, watched the scene with a mix of disdain and determination. The first days of marriage were a dream come true for Amina. Kofi was everything she had hoped for and more: tender, considerate, passionate. Together they built a small hut on the edge of the village, near the Afia River, whose clear waters seemed to bless their union. However, Amina's happiness was about to face its first test. Binta, determined to maintain control over her son, began to visit the hut frequently, always with a new complaint or demand. "Kofi, this hut is unworthy of my son. Why haven't you expanded it?" she demanded one day. "Amina, do you call this a meal? My son deserves feasts fit for a king," she criticized the next. Amina, determined to keep the peace, tried hard to please her mother-in-law. She worked from dawn to dusk, cooking, cleaning, weaving. But nothing seemed enough for Binta. One night, exhausted and frustrated, Amina confronted Kofi. "Your mother is making our life impossible. Can't you talk to her?" Kofi, who had always been so attentive, seemed not to hear her. His eyes had a strange, almost glassy shine. "My mother only wants the best for us, Amina. You should be grateful for her advice." It was at that moment that Amina felt a chill run down her spine. Something was wrong. The Kofi she knew and loved would never have ignored her distress this way. days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Amina's life became a daily torment. Binta, emboldened by her son's passivity, intensified her attacks. She no longer settled for criticism. Now she imposed impossible tasks. "Amina, I want you to weave a blanket with the colors of the rainbow before sunset," she ordered one day. "Tomorrow you will fetch water from the sacred spring at the top of the mountain," she demanded the next. Kofi, once Amina's protector, now seemed like a stranger in his own home. His eyes, once full of love, were now empty, as if a fog had descended over his mind. One night, desperate and on the verge of her strength, Amina fled to the banks of the Afia River. The waters, which had once witnessed her happiness, now reflected her gaunt face and tear-filled eyes. "Why, river goddess?" Amina whispered to the waters. "Why have you abandoned me?" In response, a gentle breeze caressed her face, and Amina thought she heard a whisper in the wind. "True strength comes from within, my daughter. Seek the light in the darkness." Inspired by these mysterious words, Amina decided it was time to act. She could no longer be a passive victim of Binta's machinations. The next day, when Binta arrived with her usual demands, Amina confronted her. "Enough, mother of Kofi. I have been patient and respectful, but no more. This is my home, and I demand to be treated with dignity." Binta's eyes narrowed dangerously. "How dare you, insolent girl! You will pay for this disrespect." That night, while Amina slept, Binta sneaked out in the darkness to the Afia River. There, in a moonlit clearing, she performed a dark ritual, invoking ancient and malevolent powers. "River goddess," Binta murmured, "grant me the power to control my son and punish this woman who defies my authority." The river's waters stirred, and an ethereal voice responded, "Be careful what you wish for, Binta. Power comes at a price, and dark magic always exacts its toll." But Binta, blinded by her ambition and resentment, ignored the warning. The next morning, the change in Kofi was evident. His eyes, once empty, now glowed with an unnatural light. Every word, every gesture, seemed controlled by an invisible force. Amina, horrified, watched as her beloved husband became a puppet of his mother. Kofi began to treat her coldly, repeating Binta's criticisms as if they were his own. Desperate, Amina sought her mother Zainab's help. The old woman, upon hearing her daughter's story, shook her head sadly. "My child," Zainab said, "I feared this might happen. Binta has always been known to dabble in dark arts. But fear not, there is a way to fight this." Zainab took Amina to see an old herbalist who lived on the village outskirts. The old man, with wise eyes and wrinkled hands, listened attentively to Amina's story. "Black magic is powerful," said the herbalist, "but true love and purity of heart are even more so. You must face your fears and break the spell at its source." The herbalist gave Amina a potion made of rare herbs and instructed her to bathe in the Afia River during the next full moon. "But be careful," he warned, "for Binta will not give up easily." Meanwhile, life in the village grew increasingly tense. Neighbors who once admired Amina now whispered behind her back. Some, influenced by rumors spread by Binta, accused her of being a bad wife and a disgrace to the community. Amina, strengthened by her mother's support and the hope of reclaiming Kofi, endured the scornful looks and hurtful comments. Each night, under the starlight, she practiced the chants the herbalist had taught her, preparing for the ritual that could change her destiny. The night of the full moon arrived, laden with expectation and danger. Amina, her heart pounding, made her way to the Afia River. The jungle seemed more alive than ever, each shadow hiding potential threats. Upon reaching the shore, Amina stopped short. Binta was there, waiting, her eyes glowing with a malignant light in the darkness. "Did you think you could defy me, foolish girl?" Binta hissed. Tonight, I will finish what I started. Kofi will be mine forever, and you will be nothing but a memory." Binta began to chant a dark incantation, and the air around them charged with energy. Amina, remembering the herbalist's words, closed her eyes and began her own chant, a hymn of love and hope. The waters of the Afia River began to churn, reflecting the spiritual battle being fought on its banks. Binta, furious that her magic was not having the desired effect, pulled a small vial from her robe. "If I can't control you, I will destroy you," she shouted, throwing the vial's contents at Amina. But at that precise moment, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping between Amina and the liquid. It was Kofi, his eyes finally free of the spell that had held him captive. "No, mother!" Kofi exclaimed. "This ends now." The liquid, which turned out to be a deadly poison, splashed onto Binta. The woman, horrified, fell to her knees, her own evil turning against her. Amina, overcoming her initial shock, ran to the river and immersed herself in its waters, completing the ritual. A bright light emanated from the depths, enveloping Amina and Kofi in a purifying glow. When the light dissipated, Binta had vanished, taken by the waters of the Afia River. Kofi, fully freed from the spell, embraced Amina with tears in his eyes. "Forgive me, my love," he whispered. "I have been blind for so long." Amina, exhausted but happy, melted into her husband's embrace. "You are back," she said simply. "That's all that matters." The following days were filled with healing and reconciliation. The village, upon learning the truth about Binta and her dark magic, apologized to Amina for doubting her. Kofi, determined to make up for lost time, devoted himself body and soul to rebuilding their relationship and caring for his wife. Months later, Amina discovered she was pregnant. The news was received with joy by the entire village, but it soon became clear that this pregnancy would not be normal. As the months passed, Amina's belly grew, but the baby did not come. Worried, Amina and Kofi consulted the old herbalist again. The old man, after examining Amina, shook his head gravely. "Binta's final act of vengeance," he murmured. "She has cast a spell on your unborn child. The baby will not be born unless the enchantment is broken." Desperate, Amina and Kofi sought a solution. They traveled to distant villages, consulted sages and healers, but no one seemed to have the answer. It was then that Zainab, Amina's mother, had a revealing dream. In it, the goddess of the Afia River showed her a vision of a hidden cave deep in the jungle, where a rare flower with the power to break any curse grew. Without wasting time, Kofi prepared for the dangerous journey. Amina, determined not to be left behind despite her advanced pregnancy, insisted on accompanying him. "This is our child," she said firmly. "We will face this together." The journey was arduous. The couple ventured into parts of the jungle that no Afia inhabitant had set foot in for generations. They faced treacherous swamps, fierce animals, and poisonous plants. Every step was a struggle, especially for Amina, whose belly seemed to grow with each passing day. After weeks of searching, when their hopes began to wane, they found the cave described in Zainab's dream. Inside, illuminated by a shaft of light filtering from the ceiling, grew a flower with iridescent petals that seemed to change color with every blink. Kofi approached to pick it, but at that moment the cave floor began to tremble. From the shadows emerged a spectral figure, Binta's spirit. "Did you think it would be that easy?" roared the apparition. "I will never allow that child to be born." Binta's spirit launched an attack on Amina, but Kofi stepped in, taking the blow. He fell to the ground, his life force fading quickly. Amina, seeing her beloved husband fallen, felt a fury and determination like never before. With a cry that echoed throughout the cave, she lunged for the flower, uprooting it. Binta's spirit howled in rage, charging at Amina, but at the last second, Amina crushed the flower's petals between her hands, releasing its magical essence. An explosion of light filled the cave. Binta's spirit writhed and screamed, vanishing into thin air. At the same time, Amina felt a powerful contraction. "Kofi," she gasped, "the baby is coming!" Forgetting his own pain, Kofi rose and helped Amina lie down. There, in that ancient cave, under the watchful eyes of the jungle spirits, Amina gave birth to a beautiful child. The baby's cry seemed to awaken the jungle itself. Vines and creepers began to grow, covering the cave walls with new life. The shaft of light that had illuminated the flower expanded, bathing the small family in a golden glow. Kofi, holding his newborn son, looked at Amina with eyes full of love and wonder. "We did it," he whispered. "Our little miracle." Amina, exhausted but radiant, nodded. "He is perfect," she said, caressing the baby's cheek. "We will call him Kunto, which means light in the darkness." The journey back to Afia was celebrated by the entire jungle. The animals seemed to make way for them, and the plants bloomed in their path. When they finally reached the village, they were welcomed as heroes. Zainab, seeing her grandson for the first time, wept with joy. "The curse has been broken," she declared. "This child will bring blessings to our village for generations." The following years were of peace and prosperity for Amina, Kofi, and little Kunto. The village of Afia flourished, and the story of their bravery and love became a legend, told around campfires for generations. Amina, who had once been criticized for not marrying, was now respected as one of the village's wisest women. Many came to her for advice, especially the young women who faced similar pressures she had experienced. Kofi became a respected leader, always consulting Amina before making important decisions. Together, they worked to create a fairer and more understanding community. Kunto grew strong and wise, showing an early gift for healing and white magic. Under the old herbalist's tutelage, he learned to use his abilities for the village's good. One night, years later, while the family sat in front of their hut watching the stars, Amina reflected on her journey. "There were times I thought we wouldn't make it," she admitted, "but now I see that every trial, every obstacle made us stronger." Kofi took her hand, his eyes shining with the same love he had felt the first time he saw her. "And look at us now," he said. "We have everything we ever dreamed of and more." Kunto, now a young teenager, joined them. "Will you tell me the story of how you broke the curse again?" he asked, though he had heard it hundreds of times. Amina smiled, embracing her son. "Of course, my love, because it's a story of hope, perseverance, and above all, the power of true love." And so, under the starry African sky, Amina began to narrate once more the story of her great adventure, a story that would continue to inspire future generations, reminding them that even in the darkest moments, there is always a light that guides the way to happiness. Leave your comments below and share what you've learned from this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to not miss our next exciting stories.